In a hospital, the routine was broken by an unexpected event. A golden horse entered, altering the course of everything. With caution, it went to a baby in a coma. Surprisingly, the impossible became real, touching the hearts of everyone. Before hearing this emotional account, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. On the night when everything changed at Hope Memorial Hospital, head nurse Sarah Johnson was completing her 12th consecutive shift. The sky over Chicago was exceptionally starry, something rare for such an illuminated metropolis. It was exactly 11:47 p.m. when the automatic doors of the hospital opened without anyone triggering the sensor. The sound of hooves against the hospital floor echoed through the antiseptic corridors. A majestic horse with golden fur and a mane that seemed made of liquid gold threads entered the premises with supernatural elegance. Its eyes, deep crystalline blue, emanated ancient wisdom, as if carrying secrets from other worlds. Sarah, who was at the nursing station on the first floor, was paralyzed. In her 20 years of profession, she had never witnessed something so extraordinary. The animal moved with impossible precision, as if it knew every corridor of the hospital. Even more surprising was the fact that none of the security systems had been triggered. "This cannot be happening," she murmured to herself, while observing the horse moving with determination toward the neonatal ICU. Her first instinct was to call security, but something deep inside prevented her. There was an aura of serenity surrounding that creature that defied any logic. In bed 108 of the neonatal ICU, little Jacob was completing his 10th day of life, bravely fighting against a condition that doctors still couldn't diagnose with precision. His parents, Robert and Claire Wilson, had spent the entire afternoon by his side, practically being forced to go home to rest by the medical team. Dr. Michael Reynolds, the neonatologist responsible for the case, was precisely analyzing Jacob's latest exams when the golden horse crossed the ICU doors. The doctor, known for his skepticism and unshakable rationality, dropped the clipboard he was holding. The metallic noise echoed through the unit, but the horse remained undisturbed. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Reynolds, adjusting his glasses as if doubting his own vision. The animal, however, continued its determined path until stopping exactly beside Jacob's crib. Nurse Sarah, who had followed the horse, entered the ICU right after, accompanied by Dr. Elizabeth Cooper, the on-duty pediatrician. The three witnesses observed, astonished, as the magnificent animal lowered its head toward the baby. It was at this moment that the monitors began to register significant changes. Jacob's heartbeat, previously irregular, found a stable rhythm. His oxygen saturation, which had never gone above 89%, began to rise gradually: 90%, 92%, 95%. "The parameters are normalizing," exclaimed Dr. Cooper, running to check the equipment. "It's as if he's responding to the horse's presence." The animal remained motionless, its muzzle delicately close to the baby's face, while a faint bluish light began to emanate from its body. The ICU temperature, always rigorously controlled, seemed to oscillate, and a gentle aroma of wildflowers filled the environment. News of the mysterious visitor's presence began to spread throughout the hospital. Staff from other departments found excuses to pass by the neonatal ICU, some discreetly recording the moment on their phones, others simply stopping to contemplate that surreal scene. Dr. Reynolds, still trying to maintain his scientific posture, began documenting every change in Jacob's vital signs. "This defies all laws of medicine I know," he admitted, his voice betraying a mixture of fascination and disbelief. Sarah, meanwhile, remembered her grandmother, a healer from rural Kentucky, who always talked about sacred animals and their healing power. "There are mysteries in this world that science still cannot explain," the old lady used to say while preparing her teas and ointments. At midnight, Robert and Claire received a call from the hospital. Contrary to all protocols, Dr. Cooper felt she needed to inform them about the extraordinary event that was occurring. "Come immediately," was all she could say. When the couple arrived, breathless and apprehensive, they found a small crowd of staff gathered near the neonatal ICU. The golden horse continued its silent vigil beside Jacob, whose color had visibly improved. The heart monitor emitted a rhythmic and strong beep, like a song of hope. Claire, who had lost hope after days of discouraging prognoses, felt her legs weaken. Robert supported her, and together they approached their son's crib. The horse slightly raised its head, its blue eyes meeting those of the baby's parents, transmitting a silent message of comfort and promise. "It's a miracle," whispered Claire, tears streaming down her face as she watched her son breathe with a strength he had never shown before. Robert, the pragmatic man he had always been, found himself without words, in the face of that inexplicable manifestation. The early morning advanced, and Hope Memorial Hospital, normally immersed in the methodical routine of medical care, was transformed into the setting of an event that defied human understanding. The Golden Horse, a silent guardian, remained firm in its mission, while little Jacob, for the first time since his birth, seemed truly at peace. Nobody dared to interfere with that mysterious connection between the animal and the baby. The hours passed, and a new reality was established in that hospital environment, where science and mystery intertwined in an inexplicable way. The night that had begun like any other was transformed into the prelude of a story that would forever change the lives of all involved. Dawn brought a different atmosphere to Hope Memorial Hospital. News of the Golden Horse and its mysterious connection with little Jacob had spread like wildfire, attracting the attention not only of the staff, but also of local media that began to gather at the hospital entrance. The administrative director, Dr. Patricia Morgan, a 60-year-old woman known for her rigidity and attachment to protocols, called an emergency meeting at 7 a.m. In her office on the 10th floor, she faced the medical team with an expression that mixed concern and disbelief. "We need to discuss the unusual situation we're facing," she began, adjusting her gold-framed glasses. "We have a horse, a large animal, inside our neonatal ICU. This violates all existing biosafety standards." Dr. Reynolds, who hadn't left his post all night, immediately intervened. "Dr. Morgan, I know it seems absurd, but I need to show you something." He opened a folder with Jacob's test results from the last 12 hours. "The numbers don't lie. The improvement is extraordinary and inexplicable by conventional medical standards." Nurse Sarah, who was also participating in the meeting, added, "Besides, the animal demonstrates behavior impossible to explain. It doesn't produce any mess, doesn't get agitated, maintains an almost sacred posture." In the neonatal ICU, Claire and Robert took turns between naps in an improvised armchair, refusing to leave their son. The horse remained in its position, emanating that bluish light that seemed to pulse in sync with Jacob's heartbeat. The animal's golden mane occasionally produced small reflections that danced on the walls, creating a hypnotizing spectacle. During the morning, an unexpected figure arrived at the hospital. Mrs. Ruby Jenkins, an 85-year-old lady, known in the region as a wise healer. Dressed in simple but impeccably clean clothes, she crossed the main hall with a dignity that naturally made people open a path for her. "I came because I dreamed of him," she simply said to the receptionist, who, surprisingly, didn't question her entry. Upon reaching the neonatal ICU, Mrs. Jenkins stopped at the door, her dark eyes shining with recognition upon seeing the Golden Horse. "It's a guardian," she pronounced with reverence. "They appear rarely, only when a special soul needs protection." Her presence immediately attracted Sarah's attention, who recognized in her the same wisdom her grandmother possessed. Mrs. Jenkins approached Jacob's crib, making a small reverence to the horse, which responded with a gentle head movement. "This boy," she continued, "carries a very special gift. The guardian came to ensure he survives to fulfill his purpose." The medical team, who initially observed the scene with skepticism, couldn't ignore when the monitors began to register, a new wave of improvements in Jacob's vital signs, coinciding with the lady's words. Dr. Reynolds, who had returned from the meeting, found himself divided between his scientific training and the inexplicable happening before his eyes. "How can we explain this?" he murmured, more to himself than to others. "Not everything needs to be explained, Doctor," replied Mrs. Jenkins with a serene smile. "Some things only need to be accepted and understood with the heart." Meanwhile, in the hospital corridor, a line of people was forming, waiting to get a brief glimpse of the phenomenon. Staff from other departments, patients who could move around, and even some visitors patiently awaited their turn to witness the extraordinary. Claire, observing the movement, held Robert's hand tightly. "Do you realize? Our son is uniting people. It's as if he's bringing hope not just to us but to everyone who hears about this story." Robert, who had always based his decisions on concrete facts, found himself experiencing a profound inner transformation. Perhaps there are more mysteries in the world than we imagine, he reflected, watching his son sleep peacefully for the first time since birth. In the afternoon, Dr. Morgan returned to the neonatal ICU, this time accompanied by a team of specialists in animal-assisted therapy. Among them was Dr. Amanda Thompson, a researcher, who had implemented similar programs in various hospitals across the country. "In all my years of research, I've never seen anything like this," admitted Dr. Thompson, marveling at the scene. "But there are studies that prove the therapeutic power of animals. Perhaps we are witnessing something that transcends our current understanding of medicine." The day advanced, and with it grew the number of reports of inexplicable events in the hospital. Nurses swore they had seen small golden lights floating through the corridors. Patients on other floors reported sensations of inexplicable well-being. Some claimed to have dreamed of the Golden Horse, waking up with a renewed sense of hope. Mrs. Jenkins, who had remained at the hospital for hours, began to share ancient stories about similar guardians in other cultures and eras. Her words, loaded with ancestral wisdom, found echo in the hearts of those present, creating a bridge between the mystical and the real. "Guardians appear at crucial moments," she explained, "when the balance between worlds needs to be restored. This horse is not here just for little Jacob, but to remind us of something we've been forgetting. Life is a sacred mystery that goes beyond our rational understanding." As the sun began to set, casting orange rays through the ICU windows, the Golden Horse remained in its tireless vigil. Its presence had transformed Hope Memorial Hospital into a place where the impossible became reality, where hope took physical form, and where the line between science and miracle became increasingly thin. Night approached, bringing with it the promise of more mysteries and revelations. Little Jacob, protected by his golden guardian, continued his journey of recovery, unaware of the impact his story was having on everyone around him. Hope Memorial Hospital, once just another medical institution, was gradually transforming into a sanctuary where the extraordinary had found its place. The third day of the Golden Horse's presence brought surprising discoveries. During the afternoon, while Dr. Reynolds performed another battery of tests on Jacob, Claire found in her purse an old family medallion she hadn't seen in years. The object, an ornate piece in aged gold, featured an engraving of a horse identical to the guardian watching over her son. "This belonged to my great-grandmother," Claire explained to Nurse Sarah, her hands trembling slightly as she held the medallion. "She always said it was an inheritance from Scotland, passed down for generations. There was a story about mystical protectors, but I never paid much attention." Mrs. Jenkins, who had returned to the hospital that morning, examined the medallion with experienced eyes. "It's not a coincidence," she affirmed with conviction. "Your family has an ancient connection with the guardians. The medallion is a seal, a mark of protection that crosses generations." Meanwhile, on the 10th floor, Dr. Morgan received an intriguing call from St. Mary's Hospital in Boston. A similar case had occurred there in 1923, documented in records, preserved in the hospital's historical archives. A horse with identical characteristics had appeared to save a child in terminal condition. The records show that the child not only survived, reported the British archivist on the phone, but developed an extraordinary healing ability. She became one of the most renowned doctors of the 20th century, saving countless lives with revolutionary treatment methods. The news spread quickly through the hospital, adding a new layer of mystery to the already extraordinary situation. Dr. Reynolds, always methodical, began researching other similar cases in the medical literature, discovering scattered but consistent reports of similar appearances in different cultures and eras. In the early evening, an even more impressive phenomenon occurred. The Golden Horse, for the first time since its arrival, emitted a soft musical whinny that resonated throughout the hospital. At the same instant, all electronic devices flickered, and a wave of inexplicable well-being swept through the building. Patients in serious condition reported sudden improvements. A woman in a coma for 3 months opened her eyes. A child with paralysis managed to move their toes. It was as if a wave of healing energy had been released, affecting everyone present. Robert, who until then had maintained a more reserved posture in the face of the events, shared a revelation with his wife. "When I was little, my grandmother told stories about a golden horse that saved an entire village during an epidemic in rural Tennessee. I always thought it was just a legend." Sarah, recalling her own healer grandmother's stories, began connecting the dots. "There are places in the world where the border between the physical and spiritual is thinner," she explained. "Perhaps Hope Memorial Hospital has become one of those portals." Dr. Cooper, who closely followed Jacob's evolution, noticed an interesting pattern in the horse's moments of greatest activity. "It's as if it responds to a lunar cycle. The intensity of the light it emanates increases as the moon grows in the sky." Mrs. Jenkins confirmed the observation with a knowing smile. "The guardians are connected to natural cycles. They channel the energy of the earth itself to accomplish their healing mission." As the night progressed, more people began reporting dreams and visions related to the Golden Horse. A nurse from the oncology department described a vivid dream where the animal showed her a new treatment method. A resident doctor woke up with a clear understanding of how to solve a case that had intrigued him for weeks. Claire, sitting next to Jacob's crib, noticed that the medallion in her hands had begun to emit a soft glow, similar to the horse's aura. As she brought it closer to her son, the monitors registered a new wave of improvements in his vital signs. "It's as if the medallion amplifies the guardian's energy," observed Mrs. Jenkins, her eyes shining with ancient wisdom. "Your family was always destined for this moment, Claire. Jacob is not just being healed, he's being prepared for something greater." The medical team, now fully involved in the phenomenon, began documenting each occurrence with scientific precision, even though conventional explanations were not sufficient. Dr. Reynolds, in particular, began to merge his medical knowledge with Mrs. Jenkins' mystical observations, creating a new observation protocol that considered both physical and spiritual aspects. "We are witnessing something that could completely change our understanding of healing and medicine," he reflected, observing Jacob's latest test results. "Perhaps true healing has always been a combination of science and something deeper, something our ancestors understood better than we do." At midnight, a new phenomenon began to manifest. Small golden lights, similar to fireflies, began to dance around Jacob's crib, forming complex patterns in the air. The guardian horse remained motionless, but its presence seemed stronger than ever, as if it were orchestrating a silent symphony of healing energy. Dr. Morgan, observing everything from her office through the security cameras, finally surrendered to the magnitude of the inexplicable. In her hands rested a preliminary report documenting more than 50 cases of unexplained improvements in patients since the Golden Horse's arrival. Hope Memorial Hospital had transformed into an epicenter of hope and mystery, where each new dawn brought with it the promise of more revelations and miracles. And at the center of it all, a small baby and his mystical guardian continued their extraordinary journey, rewriting the boundaries between the possible and the impossible. With the dawn of the 4th day, Hope Memorial Hospital found itself in a state of profound transformation. The presence of the Golden Horse had triggered a series of events that went far beyond Jacob's miraculous recovery. It was as if a wave of healing and renewal was spreading throughout the building, affecting patients, staff, and even the physical structure of the hospital itself. In the neonatal ICU, Jacob was no longer the only baby showing surprising improvements. Other newborns in critical condition began showing signs of recovery, their monitors pulsing with renewed vitality. The neonatology team, led by Dr. Reynolds, worked tirelessly to document each change, each unexpected progress. "It's as if the horse has created a healing field," observed Dr. Cooper, analyzing the data collected over the last 72 hours. The effects seem to expand in concentric waves, first reaching the closest patients and then spreading to the upper floors. On the fourth floor, dedicated to pediatric oncology, a phenomenon occurred that left doctors and nurses astonished. Lily, an 8-year-old girl in the terminal stages of leukemia, woke up in the morning reporting a vivid dream about the golden horse. To everyone's amazement, her tests performed shortly after revealed a significant reduction in cancer cells. "He told me I had an important mission," Lily recounted, her eyes shining with a new light. "He said I needed to get strong to help other children in the future." News of Lily's recovery spread quickly, bringing a wave of hope to families who had long lost faith in conventional treatments. Parents of other children began reporting similar dreams, all involving the mysterious Golden Guardian. Meanwhile, at the hospital reception, a growing line of people formed seeking to witness the miracle. Many brought flowers, candles, and even offerings for the horse, transforming the entrance of Hope Memorial into a veritable improvised sanctuary. Dr. Morgan, realizing the magnitude of the phenomenon, called a press conference to address the situation. Faced with dozens of journalists, eager for information, she maintained a cautious posture, but could not deny the inexplicable. "We are facing a phenomenon that defies our current understanding of medicine," she admitted, nervously adjusting her glasses. "While we continue to scientifically investigate the events, we cannot ignore the positive results we are observing in our patients." The director's statement opened the doors to a wave of speculation and theories. Experts in paranormal phenomena, religious leaders, and scientists from various fields began to converge on the hospital, each offering their own interpretation of the events. Amid this agitation, Claire and Robert remained by Jacob's side, witnessing day after day the miraculous recovery of their son. The family medallion, now always near the crib, seemed to pulse with its own energy, in sync with the baby's heartbeat. "It's as if we're at the epicenter of something much bigger than ourselves," reflected Robert, observing the coming and going of doctors and nurses. "Something that's changing not just our son, but everyone around us." Mrs. Jenkins, who had become a constant presence at the hospital, began organizing small meditation and prayer groups in the Hope Memorial Gardens. Her ancestral wisdom attracted both staff and visitors, creating a space for reflection and connection amid the whirlwind of extraordinary events. "What we are experiencing here is a reminder," she explained to those who gathered to listen to her. "A reminder that true healing involves body, mind, and spirit. The guardian horse came to teach us to reconnect with this ancient wisdom." As the day progressed, new reports of inexplicable cures continued to emerge. In the cardiology department, patients with reserved prognoses began to show significant improvements. In the psychiatric ward, chronic cases of depression and anxiety showed signs of remission. Dr. Reynolds, immersed in his research, began theorizing about the nature of the energy emanating from the golden horse. "It's as if we're dealing with a form of beneficial radiation," he explained to his team, "something that stimulates the body's natural healing process at a level we don't yet fully understand." Meanwhile, in the neonatal ICU, the guardian horse remained in its silent vigil. Its presence, once viewed with shock and disbelief, was now accepted as an integral part of the hospital environment. Nurses talked to it, recovering patients came to thank it, and even the most skeptical doctors found comfort in its serene presence. As night fell, a new phenomenon began to manifest. Small golden sparks, almost imperceptible to the naked eye, began to detach from the horse's mane, floating through the air like tiny stars. Wherever they landed, on a patient, a plant, or even the hospital walls, they left a trail of renewed vitality. Nurse Sarah, observing the spectacle with admiration, couldn't contain an exclamation of amazement. "It's as if the hospital itself is alive," she murmured, seeing the once faded walls gain a subtle glow. In the doctor's lounge, a heated discussion unfolded. Some defended the need to keep the phenomenon secret, fearing an invasion of curiosity seekers that could disturb the delicate balance achieved. Others argued that the world needed to know that what was happening at Hope Memorial could revolutionize medicine as a whole. Claire, cradling Jacob in her arms for the first time since his hospitalization, felt a deep gratitude flow through her being. "No matter what happens from now on," she said softly to her husband, "our son is already a miracle, and this miracle is spreading, touching lives we can't even imagine." With the starry night sky visible through the ICU windows, Hope Memorial Hospital pulsed with an energy of transformation and hope. The fourth day was coming to an end, but it was clear to all present that the journey was far from over. The Golden Horse, in its silent mission, continued to weave a tapestry of healing and renewal, connecting past and present, science and mystery in a cosmic dance of infinite possibilities. The fifth day at Hope Memorial Hospital dawned with an atmosphere charged with expectation. The extraordinary events of the previous days had created an almost palpable energy field, as if the very air was impregnated with miraculous possibilities. In the neonatal ICU, Jacob, now visibly stronger, opened his eyes for the first time since his hospitalization. His eyes, deep crystalline blue, seemed to reflect the same ancestral wisdom present in the guardian horse's gaze. Claire, witnessing this moment, felt an indescribable connection with her son, as if she could see through him a glimpse of an extraordinary future. "He has the horse's eyes," she whispered to Robert, her voice choked with emotion. Dr. Reynolds, examining Jacob that morning, noticed something even more surprising. "The birthmarks," he exclaimed, pointing to small, golden spots that had appeared on the baby's skin, forming a pattern reminiscent of constellations. They weren't here before. Mrs. Jenkins, hastily called for consultation, examined the marks with reverence. "They are protection sigils," she explained. "The guardian is not just healing Jacob, it's preparing him for a greater purpose." Meanwhile, in the hospital corridors, a curious phenomenon began to manifest. Patients and staff reported hearing soft, almost imperceptible music that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The melody, described as a mixture of nature sounds with crystalline notes, had a profoundly calming effect on all who perceived it. Dr. Cooper, intrigued by these reports, initiated a series of experiments to try to capture and analyze these mysterious sounds. "It's as if the hospital has developed its own pulse, its own healing frequency," she theorized, analyzing the sound wave graphs on her computer. On the fifth floor, dedicated to rehabilitation, an event occurred that defied all medical expectations. Tom, a 45-year-old man who had been paralyzed for a decade due to a car accident, reported having dreamed of the Golden Horse during the night. Upon waking, to everyone's amazement, he managed to move his toes. "In the dream, the horse told me it was time to rise and walk again," Tom recounted, tears of joy streaming down his face as he demonstrated his new movements to a team of astonished physical therapists. News of Tom's recovery spread quickly, attracting the attention of neurology specialists from across the country. Theories about neural regeneration and brain plasticity began to circulate, with many arguing that the energy field created by the guardian horse could be catalyzing healing processes previously considered impossible. At the hospital reception, the flow of visitors and pilgrims continued to increase. People of different beliefs and origins converged on the site, transforming the space into a veritable cultural mosaic. Hindus placed flower offerings, Christians prayed the rosary, shamans performed purification rituals, all united by hope and belief in the healing power emanating from Hope Memorial. Dr. Morgan, pressured by growing attention from the media and scientific community, decided to implement an interdisciplinary research program to study the phenomena occurring in the hospital. Scientists, doctors, quantum physicists, and even specialists in paranormal phenomena were invited to form an investigation team. "We are facing a unique opportunity to expand the limits of our knowledge about healing and consciousness," she declared in a meeting with the new research team. "Our goal is to unite science and spirituality in a way that can benefit humanity as a whole." While the research team settled in, new phenomena continued to emerge. Nurses reported that plants in the corridors and gardens of the hospital were growing at an accelerated rate, some flowering out of season. The air quality inside the building improved significantly, with patients with respiratory problems experiencing almost immediate relief upon entering the hospital. In the late afternoon, an unexpected event caused commotion. The guardian horse, for the first time since its arrival, moved from its position beside Jacob's crib. With slow and majestic steps, it walked through the corridors of the neonatal ICU, stopping briefly beside each crib. As it passed, the monitors of all the babies registered immediate improvements in their vital signs. Sarah, who witnessed the scene, felt an overwhelming emotion take hold of her. "It's as if it's blessing each child," she said, her voice choked. "As if it's spreading its healing energy to everyone who needs it." Dr. Reynolds, observing the phenomenon, had an epiphany. "Perhaps what we're witnessing is not just the healing of individuals," he reflected. "Perhaps it's the awakening of a collective healing consciousness, something that has always existed within us, but that we had forgotten how to access." As night fell, Hope Memorial Hospital seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The lights in the corridors gently oscillated, creating patterns reminiscent of auroras. The sound of the mysterious music became more audible, enveloping the entire, building in an ethereal symphony of healing and renewal. Claire and Robert, watching their son sleep peacefully, felt a deep sense of gratitude and reverence. "It's as if we're at the center of a revolution," whispered Robert, "a silent revolution that's changing the way we understand life and healing." Mrs. Jenkins, sitting on a bench in the hospital garden, looked at the starry sky with a serene smile. "The ancients always knew," she murmured to herself. "They always knew that true healing comes from the balance between the visible and the invisible, between the tangible and the ethereal." As the 5th day came to an end, Hope Memorial Hospital had transformed into an epicenter of hope and infinite possibilities. The guardian horse, in its silent mission, continued to challenge the boundaries between science and miracle, inviting all present to expand their understanding of what is possible when the heart opens to the extraordinary. The 6th day at Hope Memorial Hospital dawned with a palpable energy in the air. The Golden Horse's presence had triggered a series of events that went far beyond conventional understanding of medicine, transforming the hospital into a true epicenter of healing and renewal. In the early morning hours, an extraordinary phenomenon began to manifest. Patients from different wings reported hearing soft, harmonious music that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the hospital. The melody, described as a mixture of nature sounds with crystalline notes, had a profoundly therapeutic effect on all who perceived it. Dr. Reynolds, intrigued by these reports, decided to investigate the phenomenon more closely. Armed with high-sensitivity recording equipment, he traversed the hospital corridors, capturing the mysterious sound vibrations. "It's incredible," he exclaimed, analyzing the data on his computer. "The frequencies we're recording correspond exactly to the frequencies known to promote cell regeneration and nervous system balance." In the neonatal ICU, Jacob continued to surprise the medical team with his extraordinary recovery. The golden marks on his skin, reminiscent of constellations, seemed to pulse gently in sync with the mysterious music that permeated the hospital. Claire, sitting beside her son's crib, noticed something even more surprising. "Look!" she exclaimed, pointing to the family medallion that rested near Jacob. The ancient artifact had begun to emit a soft glow, pulsing in the same rhythm as the marks on the baby's skin. Mrs. Jenkins, called to examine the phenomenon, smiled knowingly. "The medallion and Jacob are in resonance," she explained. "It's as if they're communicating, exchanging an ancient wisdom that goes beyond words." Meanwhile, on other floors of the hospital, the effects of the guardian horse's presence continued to manifest in surprising ways. In the oncology wing, patients undergoing chemotherapy reported a significant decrease in side effects. Blood tests revealed an impressive improvement in immune cell counts. Dr. Cooper, head of the oncology team, was amazed by the results. "It's as if the energy field created by the horse is potentiating our conventional treatments," she observed, analyzing the patient's charts. "We're seeing responses that would normally take months to manifest." On the 6th floor, dedicated to mental health, another intriguing phenomenon began to unfold. Patients with chronic anxiety and depression disorders reported a sense of peace and mental clarity that many had never experienced before. Dr. Jason Collins, chief psychiatrist, noticed a significant change in his patient's brainwave patterns. "It's fascinating," he commented, examining the electroencephalograms. "We're observing an increase in alpha and theta wave activity associated with states of deep relaxation and emotional healing." As the day progressed, the mysterious music that permeated the hospital seemed to gain strength and complexity. Many described the sensation of being immersed in a cosmic symphony where each note carried a potential for healing and transformation. In the hospital garden, Mrs. Jenkins organized a meditation circle, inviting patients, family members, and staff to consciously connect with the healing energy that permeated the environment. Dozens of people gathered, forming a vibrant mosaic of colors and cultures. "Close your eyes and feel the music," instructed Mrs. Jenkins, her voice soft but firm. "Let it guide you inward to the place where true healing happens." As the group meditated, something extraordinary began to happen. Small golden lights similar to fireflies began to manifest in the air around the participants. Those who opened their eyes were amazed by the ethereal spectacle. In the improvised research center at the hospital, the multidisciplinary team worked tirelessly to document and analyze the phenomena. Quantum physicists theorized about non-local energy fields, while molecular biologists examined tissue samples showing unprecedented regeneration rates. Dr. Morgan, observing the team's work, felt a mixture of emotions. As a scientist, she was fascinated by the possibilities for advancement in medical knowledge. As an administrator, she was aware of the logistical and ethical challenges the situation presented. "We are at the frontier of something revolutionary," she reflected, sharing her thoughts with Dr. Reynolds, "something that can fundamentally change the way we understand health and healing." At dusk, the guardian horse, which had remained motionless for hours, suddenly raised its majestic head. Its eyes, deep and mysterious blue, seemed to fix on a distant point, as if receiving a message from another plane. At that moment, the music that permeated the hospital reached a crescendo, enveloping the entire building in a wave of palpable energy. Patients, doctors, nurses, and visitors all felt a wave of warmth and well-being course through their bodies. Claire, still beside Jacob, felt a deep connection with her son, as if she could see through his eyes a future full of extraordinary possibilities. "He's not just our son now," she whispered to Robert. "He belongs to something greater, something we've barely begun to understand." As night fell over Hope Memorial Hospital, the symphony of healing continued to resonate, its notes carrying promises of transformation and renewal. The 6th day was coming to an end, but it was clear to all present that they were only at the beginning of an extraordinary journey, a journey that promised to redefine the boundaries between science and miracle, between the tangible and the ethereal. The 7th day at Hope Memorial Hospital dawned with an atmosphere of almost palpable anticipation. The energy accumulated throughout the week seemed to be reaching a culminating point, as if the entire building and its occupants were on the verge of a profound transformation. In the early morning hours, an extraordinary phenomenon began to manifest. Patients from all wings of the hospital reported vivid and synchronized dreams, all involving the Golden Horse. Each dream, though unique, shared a common theme, a message of collective healing and awakening consciousness. Dr. Reynolds, fascinated by these reports, immediately initiated a study to document and analyze the dreams. "It's as if the guardian horse is communicating directly with the collective subconscious of the hospital," he theorized, examining the patterns that emerged from the accounts. In the neonatal ICU, Jacob opened his eyes, revealing an even deeper and more luminous blue. Claire and Robert, who had fallen asleep beside the crib, awoke with a sensation of having participated in a profound spiritual journey. "I saw our son grow up," whispered Claire, her words charged with emotion. "I saw the man he will become, the difference he will make in the world." Robert nodded, silent tears streaming down his face. "I saw it too. It's as if we received a glimpse of the future, a future full of hope and possibilities." Meanwhile, in the hospital corridors, something even more extraordinary began to happen. The plants in pots and indoor gardens began to bloom in an explosion of colors and fragrances, regardless of the season. Exotic flowers never before seen in that region sprouted in flower beds and even in the cracks of the walls. Dr. Cooper, passing by one of these improvised gardens, noticed something surprising. "These plants," she exclaimed, examining a flower, "with golden petals up close, some of them have medicinal properties we believed extinct for centuries." In the research center, the multidisciplinary team worked frantically to document and analyze the unfolding phenomena. Biologists collected samples of the new plant species, while physicists recorded inexplicable fluctuations in the hospital's electromagnetic fields. Dr. Morgan, observing the team's work, felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "We are witnessing something that goes beyond science as we know it," she reflected, "something that could fundamentally change our understanding of the universe and our place in it." At noon, an even more surprising event occurred. The Guardian, horse which had remained in the neonatal ICU for days, began to move. With slow and majestic steps it traversed the hospital corridors, stopping briefly on each floor. As it passed, patients reported sensations of warmth and well-being, as if a wave of healing energy was washing over their bodies. Medical equipment registered sudden improvements in vital signs, and in some cases, chronic symptoms completely disappeared. In the rehabilitation wing, Tom, the man who had recovered movement in his legs after years of paralysis, took his first steps without assistance, provoking tears of joy in patients and staff who witnessed the moment. In the hospital garden, Mrs. Jenkins led a large meditation circle, uniting patients, family members, doctors, and nurses in a powerful current of collective intention. "We are on the threshold of a new era," she proclaimed, her voice resonating with ancestral wisdom. "An era where healing is not just of the body, but of the soul, of the community, of the planet itself." As the day progressed, the ethereal music that had permeated the hospital in previous days reached a crescendo. Now even those who previously couldn't hear it reported perceiving it clearly, describing it as a cosmic symphony that resonated with the very frequency of life. In the late afternoon, something even more extraordinary began to manifest. Small points of golden light like microscopic stars began to appear in the air, dancing in complex and hypnotizing patterns. These points of light seemed to respond to the thoughts and emotions of people around, creating forms and symbols that many described as a universal language of healing. Dr. Reynolds, observing the phenomenon with a mixture of scientific fascination and spiritual reverence, had an epiphany. "Perhaps," he said to Dr. Morgan, "what we're witnessing is not just the healing of individuals or even of a hospital. Perhaps it's the awakening of a collective healing consciousness, something that has always existed within us, but that we had forgotten how to access." As night fell over Hope Memorial Hospital, a sense of profound transformation hung in the air. Patients, doctors, nurses, and visitors all felt they were on the verge of something monumental, something that would go far beyond the walls of the hospital. Claire and Robert, cradling Jacob in their arms, looked out the window of the neonatal ICU, watching the city lights come on. "It's as if the world out there doesn't yet know," murmured Claire, "doesn't know that everything is about to change." The Guardian horse, returning to its position beside Jacob's crib, emitted a soft whinny that seemed to resonate with the very frequency of the universe. In that moment, everyone at Hope Memorial Hospital felt in their hearts that the 8th day would bring with it not just the dawn of a new day, but the dawn of a new era for humanity. The 8th day at Hope Memorial Hospital dawned with an atmosphere of expectation and reverence. The air seemed to vibrate with a palpable energy, as if the entire universe was holding its breath, awaiting the unfolding of something extraordinary. In the early morning hours, an unprecedented phenomenon began to manifest. A soft golden light, similar to the first rays of the sun, began to emanate from the center of the hospital, precisely from the location where the Guardian horse remained beside Jacob's crib. Dr. Reynolds, who had spent the night monitoring the events, was the first to notice the change. "It's as if the hospital itself is awakening," he murmured, observing how the light gradually spread through the corridors, touching every corner of the building. In the neonatal ICU, Claire and Robert awoke to find their son Jacob enveloped in a soft golden halo. The baby, once so fragile, now radiated a vitality and presence that went beyond his tender age. "He's different," whispered Claire, gently touching her son's face. "It's as if he has lived 1,000 lives in 1 week." Robert, equally amazed, noticed something even more surprising. The constellation-shaped marks on Jacob's skin seemed to be in motion, like stars dancing in a microscopic galaxy. "It's as if he carries the universe within him," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Meanwhile, on other floors of the hospital, patients began reporting extraordinary experiences. Many described sensations of lightness and expansion as if their bodies were dissolving into pure energy. Others spoke of visions of alternative realities, of past and future lives, all converging to a point of cosmic unity. Dr. Cooper, running from room to document the accounts, could hardly contain her excitement. "It's as if the barriers between dimensions were dissolving," she theorized, trying to capture in words what her eyes were witnessing. "We're seeing reality in a way that science can't yet explain." In the hospital garden, now a veritable oasis of life and color, Mrs. Jenkins led a large meditation circle. Hundreds of people, patients, staff, visitors, and even curious onlookers who had gathered at the hospital gates, united in a powerful current of collective intention. "We are at the threshold," proclaimed Mrs. Jenkins, her voice resonating with a force that went beyond the physical. "The threshold between what we were and what we can become, between separation and unity, between illness and total healing." As the sun rose on the horizon, the golden light emanating from the hospital intensified. Witnesses in adjacent streets reported seeing a pillar of light rising from the building, reaching the clouds and beyond, as if connecting heaven and earth. In the research center, equipment registered readings that defied all known laws of physics. Energy fields fluctuated and intertwined, creating patterns that scientists described as the very web of reality becoming visible. Dr. Morgan, observing the monitors with a mixture of awe and reverence, felt a profound transformation occurring within herself. "We're not just witnessing history," she said to the assembled team. "We're participating in the evolution of human consciousness." At noon, the phenomenon reached its apex. The guardian horse, which had remained motionless for hours, suddenly raised its majestic head. Its eyes, now shining like living stars, fixed on a point beyond the visible horizon. At that moment, a wave of energy swept through the hospital, so powerful that it was felt throughout the city. Patients who were previously on the brink of death rose from their beds, completely healed. Chronic wounds healed instantly, and conditions considered incurable disappeared as if they had never existed. But the transformation went beyond the physical. All present felt an expansion of consciousness, a profound understanding of the interconnection of all things. Barriers of language, culture, and belief dissolved, replaced by a sense of cosmic unity. Claire and Robert, holding Jacob in their arms, felt enveloped by a wave of unconditional love. In that moment, they understood that their son was not just theirs, but a gift to the world, a catalyst for a new era of healing and understanding. The guardian horse, its mission accomplished, began to dissolve into thousands of points of golden light. Each point of light found its way to a human heart, planting there the seed of the transformation they had witnessed. As the sun began to set, Hope Memorial Hospital was no longer just a building, but a portal, a nexus of infinite possibilities. The story of the golden horse and the miraculous baby would spread throughout the world, inspiring millions and challenging the boundaries between science and spirituality. Dr. Reynolds, observing the sky turn golden, felt a profound sense of peace and purpose. This is just the beginning, he reflected. The real work of healing, of transforming the world, begins now. As stars began to dot the night sky, Hope Memorial Hospital shone like a beacon of hope and possibilities. The 8-day journey had come to an end, but a new journey, one that would involve all of humanity, was just beginning. And so, in the quietude of that transformative night, the world took its first steps toward a new era of consciousness, healing, and cosmic unity. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that the extraordinary journey experienced at Hope Memorial Hospital has touched your hearts and expanded your horizons. Just as the Golden Horse left its mark on each person in that story, we invite you to carry this energy of transformation and healing into your own lives. To continue exploring the mysteries of healing and consciousness, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating and inspiring stories. Find it here by clicking the link on the left. If this narrative awakened something in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Daily, we bring content that challenges the boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary, exploring the infinite possibilities of human experience. Remember, just as little Jacob became a catalyst for change, each of you carries the potential to transform the world around you. Share your reflections and experiences in the comments below. Together, we can continue this journey of collective awakening. Until the next story, keep your hearts open to the miracles that surround us every day. The magic we witnessed at Hope Memorial Hospital is present in every moment, if only we open our eyes and hearts to perceive it.